Thank you. Good morning. As David said, my name's Adam Nightingale. I work at Accedo. What I'm not going to do is spend forever telling you what Accedo is, what we do, because if you know us already, then you don't need to be told again. If you don't know us, then talk to us afterwards. I stole the title from one of our creative directors who comes up with far better words and frankly, far prettier images than I ever will. But what I want to do in the next 5 or 10 minutes is talk you through some of the findings that we've had from consumer research panels that we've done and various bits of ongoing observation activity around how TV UXs are used and some of the ways in which we're putting that into practice in defining the sort of TV experiences that we think are going to drive more consumption, more revenue, more loyalty in the future. So this is an example of some work we did with PLDT in Indonesia. This is a Roku 2 application, and what we're trying to do here is focus on what TV is all about, which isn't about metadata and images and having lots of things to click through and search through. It's about watching TV. And one of the lessons that we got from the research we did last year was that the thing that really excites people about watching TV, whether it's on a phone or a laptop or you know, heaven forbid, even a TV, is looking at video content. So the goal here is to keep video absolutely front and central, but at the same time provide a really simple way to find new content, to explore it, but without taking away the pleasure and, you know, frankly, the far more compelling fact that there's something interesting going on in the background. This again is using a slightly different metaphor, and what we're looking at here is using a card-based way or the idea of a card-based index for looking through what content's available and making it really easy to flick through it and find something attractive. And again, at the same time, we're trying to keep everything equally engaging. You know, we're not losing sight of whatever that core image is, but we are making it easy to flick through and find other bits of content which are likely to be attractive, and then you can swipe to the right to find out more details on that. But again, the focus is very much on maintaining engagement, maintaining the user's attention, and not losing them from that core idea of watching TV. We find that when people move away from video, then they're far more likely to roll off the service and go and explore all sorts of other ways of amusing themselves. Keep them interested was the approach with that. This is an example of some work we did clearly for CNN in the US, and you can see that we did this during the presidential campaign last year. There's quite a strong focus on all sorts of exciting things. But again, the goal is very much allowing people to not lose focus on what's going on now, but to be able to scroll through other bits of content, whether it's shows or segments or particular topics that are likely to be interesting to them. So what we also did with this, which is a proof of concept rather than anything that's live, is link this in with a smartwatch. So if I've got particular things that I'm interested in during the day, it can pop up on my watch and I can think I'm particularly interested in finding out more about the whole Trump-Comey thing, which is riveting in a really bizarre and disturbing way. And then I can click on those items and effectively build my own playlist for later on. So when I get home or when I get to a bigger screen, I've got my own pre-built stream of, if you like, linear, non-live content that I can watch. So there's lots of different ways of segmenting the content, finding out what's interesting, and giving users the freedom to focus in on things that are particularly interesting to them. This is, I've mentioned briefly previously, what we've seen in the consumer research is that there's kind of an aversion to clicking. There's almost an anxiety and a fear of commitment that comes from actually clicking on something and going somewhere else. What we've seen is that users increasingly prefer to swipe to explore more information, you know, whether it's, as you can see here, whether it's up or down, but without actually losing that original page that you came from. So this is some work that we did for a Canadian news outlet which wanted a way of making it easy to find out more information, but without just getting lost in a whole ocean of other things. So it's slightly peculiar perhaps in some ways, but swiping seems to be the new clicking, according to the research we've done. What we also have realized, and again, it's not, it's reasonably obvious, I suppose, but it doesn't take a lot of interactivity and engagement to make something far more compelling. So in this, we're using cinemagraphs and parallaxing just to bring images to life. And the delivery payload of this is minimal, I'm told by smart people. So it's an easy way of bringing something a lot more out of the device and into a format which is immediately engaging and to my mind, actually really quite exciting. If I'm looking for content and I'm presented with just the tiniest bit of animation, suddenly it comes to life in a way that is relatively unfamiliar in some ways. And this is quite interesting. One of the topics for the panel session is around how you make sure that we provide equal access to linear content and to VOD content. How do we encourage VOD users to also be interested in linear TV and vice versa? And what we've built here is, I suppose, a dashboard is maybe one word for it, but a way of providing personalized, almost recommendations to users that pull in live TV as well as VOD content that's likely to be interesting and relevant to them. So you can see, ultimately, as it rolls through, there's obviously movies here, there's episodic content as well, but there's also live content that's likely to be relevant. So, for example, if I'm a bit of a Hala Garani fan and like The World Today at whatever time it is, 8 o'clock every weekday, then coming up to that time, then that content's going to be recommended to me as well. Adam, you really like Hala Garani, and by the way, it's 5 to 8 and she's coming up soon. So one single dashboard that pulls together, almost aggregates content from multiple sources into one place that's attractive to use, easy to use, and ticks my personal boxes, so to speak. Yeah, smartwatches as well, in our view at least, are becoming an increasingly interesting and relevant way to engage with content. I mean, God knows you wouldn't watch content on one of these. Well, I wouldn't, not with my eyesight. But in terms of being able to find content, to potentially record content, and to, as I talked about in the CNN example, to build up a playlist of content that I'm particularly interested in. There's a very useful relevance to smartwatches. Some of the work we've done over the past few years with Viasat in Scandinavia and OSN in the Middle East in particular is around building companion devices for set-top boxes. So you can record content to the box, you can manage remote records, you can look at an EPG, you can decide what you're going to watch and which screen you're going to watch it on. A lot of that capability can relatively easily be replicated in a smartwatch as well. So as a way of, you can see in the image on the left, discovering what's going on, and then record it, or you can decide you're going to play it on the TV. In the middle, you can pause, fast forward, rewind, play, whatever you wish to do. And we've been getting increasingly interested as well in the idea of audio control, so voice searching for content. So we're building some of those ideas into the service as well, as you can see in the image on the right. The VR keeps cropping up as well, or keeps cropping up, it sounds like it's a bad thing. But I think over the last 2 years, we've seen an increasing interest in VR. We're still very early in the adoption curve, and there are issues to overcome. And some of you may have seen a presentation by HBO last year where it talked, the expression was prodigious vomiting. I don't think it was related to any of the news stories, but it still can be a bit weird. And by all means, have a look on our booth upstairs. We've got a good VR demo, which we guarantee won't make you ill. I hope, but that's certainly not the plan. But what we're seeing for VR is that it's fantastic for quite short-form content. I think as users we become more used to it, and as the technology continues to advance rapidly, then we'll get to the point where it's easy and intuitive, and maybe one day the kind of thing we would happily sit entirely immersed on a train or a plane with a headset on. But we're not quite there yet, but certainly from a sports point of view and from a relatively short-form content point of view, we see a big market for VR. And that's going to start playing again, isn't it? That is the world according to us in probably 5 or 10 minutes. As I say, the focus for us at the moment is very much on understanding how users interact with content, how we can make that more interesting to them, how we can make it the relationship between them and content providers more loyal, more sticky, more engaging, more compelling. Thank you. Would you like to? Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Adam before we let him go? I don't see any hands going up. I've got one, which is to do with the money.
Okay. I get paid.
We were joking earlier on about this, but I assume most of us are not in the charity business. If there was one of these innovations, maybe with existing platforms, that you would highlight as having a greater impact than any other on, well, the money. And of course, the question is, how do you measure that? This must be ultimately the thing your customers are thinking about. What would you put to the top of the list as the most important thing to consider?
My favourite thing of the things we looked at, I think there are two things. And let me focus on the aesthetic aspect first before the money. When I went through those slides last week, the thing that I really loved was the cinemagraphs and the parallaxing on the iPhone demo, where the lady's hair was blowing beautifully in the wind in a way that mine never will, and also the slight almost 3D-like emergence of Daniel Craig on the Skyfall cover up. So I think that as a way of making consumers think, oh wow, yeah, that's actually really quite cool, and I'll have a lot more fun browsing through this than anything else. That could drive money, but I think probably the most, maybe the most enticing bit is the dashboard of live and also linear and non-linear content. So I think most operators now do have both. There's a live service of some kind, and then obviously there's a VOD platform as well. But to pull that together into one place for me is far more relevant than the separation. There's a lot more convergence going on now between the traditional linear world and the non-linear world. And that's a good way of making it easy for me as a consumer to find whatever I want that's relevant to me without browsing through multiple different means of access.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love the topic of user experience, and I must admit, when I see all these different demonstrations, I find it very difficult as an analyst to say, that's the one that works and that's the one that doesn't. I mean, it all looks very pretty. And I mean, your clients and you must do lots of user research, just as we do, but it's really difficult to get to that. What's the business impact?
Well, that's it. With your analyst hat on, I'd love to be able to say to you, the girl with the flowing hair, right? When you do that, you get 10% more business.
Exactly. But you're not going to say that in front of this audience.
Well, if I could, I would. Yeah. But it simply isn't true because we don't know. And it might be 10%. I don't know. Maybe the dashboard idea gives you 30% longer viewing times. Maybe the card-based menu approach gives you 20% more viewing time or 25% less likelihood of churning off onto, I don't know, Netflix or whatever else it might be. But we don't know because we haven't done enough research.
Okay.
We'd like to.
All right.
If anyone, by the way, wants to partner on that kind of thing, then please tell us, because I think that would be a really interesting study.
We should talk afterwards.
Okay, we will. Perfect.
Okay.
Good.
All right. If there's no other questions for Adam, thank you again very much.
No, thank you.
Introduction. Cheers.
Thanks.